Good morning. Good morning, traders. How are you all doing today? Karibuni sana. Glad to see you all here. It's fine Monday morning. Hope everyone is doing well today and hope everyone also had a great weekend. So, for those who are new, my name is Mitch Kaniero and I'm a trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Now, you know, during these sessions, we as the Afriforex team, we wake up early in the morning, we identify what trading opportunities we look at taking for the day, and we do share that information with you. So if you do have any questions or queries, feel free to ask them in the chat box. The team is here. I'm not here alone. But remember, I will also try and address any questions that are asked in the chat box at the end of this session. So let's jump straight into it. So as usual, it being a Monday, we'll start off with looking at what happened on Friday. So apologies, I think this is meant to be Friday. So on Friday, we did have the Australian dollar, the euro, and the Canadian dollar. We were focusing on those three pairs for selling, and we were looking to mix and match all those three pairs with the pairs on the buy side. So that was the Swiss franc, the British pound, the yen, the New Zealand dollar, as well as the US dollar. Now, today, there is a slight change to our watch list. Now, we will still be looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar, the euro, and the Canadian dollar. Similar situation to Friday. However, the New Zealand dollar has also moved to the sell side. And if you also do notice, we do have the NASDAQ and the US 30, the Dow Jones, which have also moved to the sell side. But we will end up having a look at that. So before we do look at the pairs that we did have on Friday that we're not going to be looking at today, looking at fundamentals, we did have a bit of news early in the morning during the Asian session for the Australian dollar. And we do seem to have quite a bit of news, especially since this being a Monday, during the London session. As you can see from 11:30 all the way till 1 o'clock, you can see we have a lot of euro fundamentals, some British pound fundamentals, as well as some Swiss franc news. So we do end up expecting there could be some volatility then. If most of you have had a look at the charts, you will see there's some huge gaps, but we'll end up going and explaining through that. As well as during the US session, there's not necessarily that much. As you can see, most of the news is coming around 5:45, which is after the New York Stock Exchange open. So most news usually comes out at 4:30, but it seems that today there's not necessarily that much activity. But let's wait to see what ends up actually happening on the charts today. So in terms of the pairs that we did have on Friday that we're not going to be looking at today, we'll start off here with the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. Now, on this currency pair, on Friday, our bias was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the three areas John had pointed out, including an area of interest right here where this blue support and resistance area is. And you can see during the London session, we actually did get the market actually coming to the downside, or I guess this was during the Frankfurt market open. You can see around 10 o'clock, the price managed to come all the way back down towards this buyer's area. But you can see the price is holding within this buyer's area throughout the London session. Once the US session did end up coming in, you can clearly see the market did start giving us a pullback. Even if this level did end up holding, you can see today during the Asian session, the New Zealand dollar weakness that is coming in. So unfortunately for us, this is a pair that's going to be off our watch list for today. Now, the next pair we did have was the euro against the New Zealand dollar. Similar situation, it seems that there was a lot of correlation on the New Zealand dollar pairs. Can see during the Frankfurt market open around here 10 o'clock, can clearly see the price did get the coming to the downside, holding to the downside right here. And you can see the price did manage to come all the way back down towards the buyer's area. But you can clearly see why you should always manage your trade within such areas. You can see these buyers did end up getting a lot of issues. However, you can see during the US session, we did get a small pullback at 4 o'clock or at 5:30, regardless of which time you ended up actually taking the trade. You can clearly see the price did manage to still come back down to the bottom area. But you can clearly see today during the Asian session, there was a lot of weakness that did end up coming in. And you can clearly see the move to the upside. So that's the reason why this is a pair that's off our watch list for today. Now, the next pair we did have for review, at least on Friday, that we're not going to be looking at today, is the New Zealand dollar against Canadian dollar. It's a similar situation. We were looking for buying opportunities, and you can see John's illustration here that we had pointed out, hoping to see if we can end up getting a pullback. The pullback did come in, and it seems that at 10 o'clock during the Frankfurt market open, we did get the price coming to the upside. But you can clearly see this area did end up giving some issues. You can see later on during the US session, it did end up attempting to go to the upside as well, but the market did end up holding quite a bit. You can see it was quite choppy on Friday, especially around 8 o'clock. There were some fundamentals. It seems that Donald Trump has really brought in a lot of effects onto the charts. Whatever he says something, we do end up seeing the effects on the chart. So sometimes it ends up being a bit unpredictable. You can clearly see the way the market did manage to still pull back to that same support and resistance area and go to the upside. But you can clearly see the New Zealand dollar weakness during the Asian session. And that's the reason why it is a pair that's off our watch list for today. So we'll jump on to today's pairs. So remember, guys, if you do manage to take any setups based on the things that we do share here, feel free to send them in to us. We should have our contact details right there in the video description. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp, and we will end up appreciating that as well. We want to see how you guys are doing to end up making sure that you are doing the right thing and to also hopefully help you guys improve. So let's jump on to today's pairs. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar pairs. We'll mix and match them with the pairs on the buy side, then move on to the euro, the Canadian dollar, and the New Zealand dollar, doing the same thing before we do have a look at the indices, then gold and silver. So we'll start off with the Australian dollar pairs. So right here, we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. Now, on Friday, we did end up having this kind of pair, and our bias was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the three areas that were highlighted on Friday. Now, during the London session, the price did end up attempting to try and come down. Unfortunately, could not really come down as low as we had wanted. You can see during the New York Stock Exchange Open around 5:30 or so, the market did manage to go to the upside. But you'll notice on all the charts at around 8 p.m. or 8:30, the markets did end up starting to really move quite aggressive. But you can clearly see there was still an opportunity here. If you look at John's illustration, where he did mention if we did get the price going to the upside, probing, coming back in and holding below, then there could have been a potential trade there. And you can clearly see with this same highlighted area that we did have, the price after coming to the downside did end up coming back up, but it was during the Asian session. You can clearly see the way the market did end up coming to the downside. And remember, we did also have Australian dollar fundamentals, which also did bring in some weakness on this pair. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. So we have identified three areas of interest. So the first area is right here at the top, aggressive sellers area right there. So we'll be waiting to see how the market reacts within one of these three areas. So right now, as the price did end up coming to the downside, we are getting a pullback, which is definitely what we want to see. But right here, since we are within an area of interest, we want to see whether or not the big boy sellers will actually get interested in this price. You can see the last time how they reacted. Let's see if the price ends up giving us some sort of probe and we see the sellers coming in and the price actually holds below, then we should be able to find a selling opportunity right there. But be aware, if the price does end up coming to the upside, but when it comes back down, it actually holds above, then there's no trading opportunity just yet. We might still see the price coming back within this particular area to the aggressive sellers area right there at the top before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. So don't just jump in because you've seen the market really coming down aggressive. Let's wait to see how it reacts within one of these areas and see signs that the big boy sellers are actually interested in that price. So I hope the game plan is clear on what we're looking at doing on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. As we move on to the next Australian dollar pair, here we have the British pound against the Australian dollar. You can see the three areas that were highlighted on Friday, looking for buying opportunities. So during the London session, nothing much happened. It looked as if it was reaching this area to the downside. And once it came up, we wanted to see if we could get the price coming back in and holding above, then we would have been able to look for a buying opportunity. And this was around 4 o'clock, but the price ended up coming to the downside and holding below. So at that point in time, there was no trading opportunity just yet. But you can see the price didn't manage to come back down all the way back to the buyer's area. We saw aggressive buyers reacting. We did get a pullback in a similar situation around 8:30 or so, still bouncing off where this buyer's area was. You can clearly see. And the price did end up attempting to go to the upside. And you can clearly see even the next level that we did end up having. When the price ended up holding within this area, you can see during the Asian session, the price breached the upside. We got the price giving us a pullback, then taking off to the upside. So today, the bias here is definitely going to be looking for those buying opportunities. So we have identified these three areas. And you can see similar correlation coming in with the Australian dollar pairs, where we've looked at the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc, where it did a similar thing, where it showed a lot of weakness, and we have started getting a pullback back within an area of interest. But just because we're within this area doesn't mean that it's time to buy just yet. Let's wait to see if we can find aggressive buyers coming in, price holding within this particular area for us to look for those buying opportunities. But be aware, the same way we illustrated on the Australian dollar against Swiss franc, if this level doesn't hold, price could be coming back to the extreme area. So it's a similar situation right here. If the price ends up coming to the downside, but when the pullback, the price actually holds below, then we should end up seeing if the price can come back all the way back down towards this buyer's area. And if we see some buyers reacting within this particular area, that's when we should be able to look for those buying opportunities on the British pound against the Australian dollar. So let's wait to see what ends up happening. Don't jump in on buys just yet. You can clearly see the sellers are still running. And if you look at the way the buyers have come up, this is not really the strong buyer, especially if you compare. The seller just came down with one candle and he took two candles for the buyer to come up. So you definitely know that's not the big boy buyer. Let's wait to see if we can find those aggressive buyers coming. So moving on to the next Australian dollar pair, here we have the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. We can see the similar correlation that came in. During the London session, we did get a small selling opportunity. As you can clearly see, these were the three areas that we had or were looking at on Friday. So during the London market, we did get the price coming to the downside. So there was a small sell, but this buyer's area did end up holding the market quite a bit. So you can clearly see it struggled to bounce off within this area. Around 5:30, the price was back within that buyer's area. And you can see the push to the upside. But it's a similar situation. This was just a probe. As you can clearly see, as the price went to the upside, it never held above. It actually came back and held below. That's usually a very good sign for a potential trading opportunity. And you can clearly see, if you did grab your selling opportunity there, the price really did end up coming down quite aggressive. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for these selling opportunities. So we'll focus on these three areas to look for the potential sells. Similar situation with the other Australian dollar pairs. We are starting to see a pullback coming in after the big push to the downside. So let's wait to see where this pullback comes in and tilts. So right now, we'll wait to see whether or not we can end up getting the sellers reacting within this first problem area. But remember, if nothing happens within this location, price can still come back all the way to the red support and resistance area for us to look for those selling opportunities. So be careful about that. But right now, it's definitely on the pullback. That means this is a failed interest. So wait to see when the sellers do end up coming back in. Now, moving on to the next and last Australian dollar pair we did have is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Now, our bias here on Friday was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out. Now, during the London session, similar situation at 11 o'clock, price was within that seller's area, and he did manage to come to the downside. I know this doesn't necessarily look very big, but I think especially when you move away from that, you can clearly see what ended up happening. So here on Friday, 11 o'clock, the price managed to come all the way back down towards the buyer's area. Should have managed your trade within this location. But if you realize the price was back within a buyer's area at 5:30, and you can clearly see the push to the upside. And you can clearly see here, the price managed to get back all the way to the extreme area. In a similar situation around 8 o'clock on Friday. Not too sure what ended up happening then because there was no fundamental. So it definitely must have been something Donald Trump had said. You can clearly see after that, the price did manage to come down quite aggressively, and similar situation during the Asian session. So today, the bias here is definitely still going to be looking for selling opportunities, but don't just jump in on sells. Remember, we need this pullback to come in and to see when these big boy sellers who managed to bring the price down are going to show interest again. So right now, wait to see if the price can come back within this particular area. So you see the big boy sellers right here, then we'll look for selling opportunities there. But remember, the price goes to the upside and we get the price holding above, then we should be waiting for the price to come back within this particular area. We do get the sellers really coming in, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities within this area at the top. So wait to see what ends up happening as the pullback does come in. Remember, as you can clearly see, you can be able to use correlation. Have a look at the other Australian dollar pairs. As you can see, they are starting to pull back. So if you see one starting to move or you see aggressive buyers, have a look at the other ones and try and identify, is it the Australian dollar that's moving or is it the counter pair that you're trading with the Australian dollar that's actually moving? So hope that is clear on the Australian dollar pairs. As you can see, we'll mix and match the Australian dollar with all the pairs on the buy side. So right now we're going to move on to the euro pairs and do the same thing. So we'll start off with the euro against the Swiss franc. Now you can clearly see similar situation, huge gaps in the market. But on Friday, bias here was to look for selling opportunities. And you can see the three areas that John had pointed out. Now this trade did end up working out during the London session. As you can clearly see, we are within this particular area. Even John's illustration does point out perfectly what we're looking for. The market did end up giving us a probe where it broke to the upside, or at least looked as if it broke to the upside. As you can see, this was the level. And after the market came to the downside and held below, you can clearly see after this pullback, there was a very nice selling opportunity to take the price down lower. We did manage to come all the way back down towards the main buyer's area at the bottom, but you can see the price did end up giving us a pullback. And similar situation at around 8 p.m. or 8:30 or so. Don't know what Donald Trump had mentioned, but at that point in time, the price did manage to come to the downside. In a similar situation, and the price broke this area to the downside and held below. As you can clearly see, the big red candle to the downside. The price pulled back, showing us evidence that this level has actually been broken. But you can clearly see during the Asian session, the price really gapped to the downside. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for these selling opportunities. So we'll focus on these three areas of interest. So aggressive seller area right there at the top. We have a level right here in the middle. Right now, it does seem that the market seems to be bouncing between these two levels. Just because they're bouncing, that doesn't mean just jumping on a sell. Remember, in order for us to sell, since everyone right now is selling, we need buyers. And this has not incited buyers. Remember, we need to possibly get the price coming back in, showing us evidence it's trying to go to the upside. If we see the price coming back in and holding below such an area, then we should be able to find selling opportunities there. But be aware that the price can still come all the way to the top area right here before we do end up finding those selling opportunities, especially when you do end up going up to a higher time frame. You can see this is a major support and resistance area that was broken, and the fact that the price could still potentially pull back to that SNR before the price ends up coming to the downside. So just be careful about that. But overall, definitely we will still be looking for sells, but we need a pullback. So if you're comparing this euro Swiss against the Swiss franc and the Australian dollar pairs we have looked at, the Australian dollar pairs are definitely better at the moment based on the fact that they are giving us a pullback. This one, not yet. Once it starts giving us higher highs and higher lows, then definitely it will be a pair of interest. At that point in time, we just want to see when the buyers will struggle and the sellers will come in for us to look for those selling opportunities. So hope that is clear on the euro against the Swiss franc as we move on to the next euro pair, which is the euro against the British pound. Can clearly see the areas that John had pointed out. Now, during the London session, we can see the price attempted to go to the upside, but it came back down and showed us evidence it was holding below. But you can clearly see after that, even during the US session, there was nothing really much that ended up happening based on the fact that you can clearly see the price was just bouncing between these two levels. No real big boy was interested at that time, except during the Asian session where the price really did come to the downside. So overall, our bias here is still going to be looking for selling opportunities. So we focus on these three areas. Right now, if we're comparing the euro against the Swiss franc and the euro against the British pound, this one is definitely much better. And if you realize it is because we are starting to actually get a series of higher highs and higher lows, this is definitely bringing in the buyers that we want in order for us to sell. So we wait to see what ends up happening within this area. So we'll first wait to see if we can see the big boy sellers coming in, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities there. Price can still come back all the way to the main spread support and resistance area, but do end up also watching out for this particular level right here. So even though we could end up expecting the price coming back all the way at the top, this is a support and resistance area that was breached. So the price could potentially still pull back towards that area. But remember, we will still be looking for sales as long as we're holding below the red support and resistance area. So hope that's clear as we move on to the next euro pair we do have. This is the euro against the Japanese yen. Similar situation on Friday. Our bias was to look for selling opportunities. Can see the risk sometimes of leaving trades open during the weekend, especially if now Trump is in office. But on Friday, bias here was to look for selling opportunities. During the London session or the Frankfurt market open, you can see the sells did end up working out, coming back down all the way to the buyer's area. So should have managed to trade then. But you can clearly see the price did end up giving us a pullback, giving us another attempt at around 4 o'clock from around the same price as you can clearly see, and did end up attempting to try and come down towards this particular area, although it just missed slightly. It's a similar situation around 8 o'clock. Not too sure what ended up happening. You can see the price went to the upside around 8. The price came back down, showing us evidence that that was a probe. And you can clearly see after the market went to the upside and came back down, it did end up giving us a pullback back within that support and resistance area for a potential selling opportunity. You can clearly see that sell really did come in quite aggressive on the euro against the Japanese yen. So today, the bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So these are the three areas that we will be focusing on. So similar situation with the euro against the Swiss franc. We are starting to, or at least we have not yet actually gotten a pullback yet. You can clearly see the market does still seem to be holding within this area. So let's wait to see if we can end up getting the price coming back within the support and resistance area for us to look for selling opportunities. Remember, price can still come back all the way to the main red support and resistance area, but we do have some sort of level right here where the market, after it did end up coming to the upside, did end up coming down quite aggressive. So be aware that the price could potentially still pull back to such a support and resistance area for the sales to work out. But for now, let's wait for a pullback to come in before we are able to look for those selling opportunities. So hope that is clear on the euro against the Japanese yen as we move on to the next and last euro pair that we do have. Here we have the euro against the US dollar. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out. But can clearly see during the London session, nothing much happened. We did get a small push to the upside, and when the price came down, it looked as if it was holding to the downside. And technically, it still did, because if we do end up putting this highlighted area, or let me just put a level where we did end up having it on Friday, You can clearly see the price looked as if it was holding to the downside, struggled within the US session as well. But I don't know necessarily what happened. As I mentioned, Trump came in at 5:30, the price came all the way back up within the main seller's area right there at the top. But it's a similar situation. When the price came up, when the pullback, it never actually held below. The reason why we mention probe all the time is because you can clearly see the price came back down, that level actually still held. You can clearly see the price gave us a pullback nicely within that area, giving us an opportunity to sell. Although that was on Friday evening, that might have been quite a bit difficult to actually end up getting that trade. But today, the bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. So we'll focus on the three areas that we are identified them. So aggressive sellers area all the way at the top. We are within an area where they're buyers. And the main thing remember we want is a pullback. So at the moment, no pullback just yet. So let's wait to see what ends up happening. Can end up getting the price coming back within either this support and resistance area, or the price can come all the way to the main sellers area right there at the top. But once we end up seeing aggressive sellers coming in, and the buyer struggling, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities. Similar situation with this area right here. You can see how aggressive the sellers ended up reacting, and look at how the buyers came in very, very slowly before the sell actually took over. So you definitely know if you can end up seeing aggressive sellers coming in, and when the buyers come up, it is slow, then you definitely will be able to find a nice selling opportunity on the euro against the US dollar. So I hope that's clear on all the euro pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the Australian dollar and the euro with the pairs on the buy side. So right now we're going to do the same thing with the Canadian dollar as well as the New Zealand dollar. So start off with the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. Similar situation on Friday. Buyers here was to look for selling opportunities. During the London session, we did get a push to the downside. As you can see, the price did manage to come back within this area. So let me just point out, even based on John's illustration, you can see we're expecting the price to go up. It comes back in, we want the price to hold below. So in this situation, you can clearly see the price did manage to end up doing that. Let me just throw this illustration. You can clearly see the price, when it went to the upside, it came back in and showed us evidence it was holding below within this area. But if you realize, if there were three opportunities, potential opportunities for those cells to actually work out, that if you realize it only moved at this time, and remember, if we do point out the market opening times, you know, we sound like a broken record, 10, 11, 4, and 5:30. And you can see this was exactly 4:30. That's when the price actually took off to the downside. And these other times, it was just 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. There's no real big boy at that time to take the market with you. So remember, the market opening times does end up giving you more confidence of taking your trades. It does end up improving the probability of that. But you can see during 4 o'clock, the the US market, the price did manage to come down lower, but in the pullback, the price came back and held above. Similar situation with all these pairs at 5:30. We did get a pullback coming all the way to the extreme sellers area. And you can clearly see at around 8 o'clock, as we've seen on all the other pairs, the price really did come to the downside, came back to the extreme area, held below, showing us evidence that the price is actually holding. And again, during the Asian session, you can clearly see the price really did come to the downside, quite aggressive. So for us today, the bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities on this pair. So we focus on these three areas right here. Now, there's a possibility, even just based on looking at how this story is coming in, the fact that the price managed to come all the way to the downside, you can see we've got a support and resistance area where the sellers did end up attempting to push down. Now, the fact that they've not been able to go any lower, it possibly means that this price right here was not good enough, meaning there's a possibility that it needs to incite a few people to look for the buys before the sells does work out. So you could end up easily finding the price attempting to go to the upside. All those people who had their sells end up getting stopped out. And if we do see aggressive sellers coming in, then we should be able to find selling opportunities there. And one thing to take note of, as you can clearly see, even though we have the main red support and resistance area right there, there does seem to be a small level right here where the price did bounce off from. So there's a possibility price could spike all the way to that area, and you could see some sellers reacting within that location. Remember, if it lines up within one of the market opening times, then you definitely could find a very nice trading opportunity on the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So hope that's clear as we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair. Here is the British pound against Canadian dollar. Our bias here is to look for buying opportunities. Similar situation on Friday. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out. So during the London session, we wanted to see whether or not we could end up getting some sort of probe. You can clearly see John's illustration, some probe, and they're showing us evidence that the price is actually holding above. Now, during the London session, that's exactly what happened. We did end up attempting to do that. At 4 o'clock, the price was holding above, tried to go up, but you can clearly see around 5:30 or so. On all these markets, the prices ended up giving us a pullback. We're hoping to see the price may be coming back to the extreme area, but John had also pointed out there was a buyer's area right here that you do need to watch out for. You can clearly see that's exactly where the price did bounce off from. Similar situation around 8:30, but even if you missed that trade, you can clearly see when the price came back up, the price showed us evidence it was holding above, and you can see how the sellers were coming down much slower. So the buyers came up and the sellers were coming down much slower before the buyers took off again. So those are clear signs that the buyers were definitely here in the market, and it did end up taking off during the Asian session. So today, the buyers here is going to be looking for buying opportunities. So we focus on these three areas for the buys. So we have the seller's area all the way at the top. And we also have conservative area right here in the middle. Now, it's a similar situation with the previous Canadian dollar pair that we've had a look at. There's a possibility, the fact that the price went to the upside, you can see we've bounced off this area and he's attempted to go up, but he's not been able to. That means probably that we need a better price than this area right here. So don't be surprised if we do end up getting some sort of probe or price action signal within such an area, where you could find the price coming down, inciting people that were looking for sales. If you see the buyers coming in and the sellers are struggling, then we should definitely be able to find some nice buying opportunities on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. But be aware, if you don't find any buyers reacting within this area, the buyers might still come all the way down towards the main aggressive buyers area before we're potentially able to look for those buying opportunities. So I hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on the British pound against the Canadian dollar. If we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair here, we do have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So you can see here on Friday, our bias was to look for selling opportunity. Small sell worked out during the Frankfurt market open, where it was within the seller's area. We did get the price coming down, but the price kept on holding within this area. We got a small pullback, and at 4 o'clock, we did end up attempting to come to the downside, but you can clearly see this level right here that we did end up having was not broken, because when the price came down, we did not get the price actually holding below. If we did, then we could have potentially been able to look for selling opportunities there. But the price ended up coming quite aggressive, actually ended up giving us a probe right here, where the price came down. Unfortunately, could not get that pullback coming back all the way to that area. I can clearly see a similar situation during the Asian session. The price seemed to have been holding below such an area and really come down quite aggressive. So today, it's still going to be looking for selling opportunities on this kind of pair. So we focus on the 3 levels that we do have right here. So right now, we're so close towards the buyer's area. We need the price actually giving us more of a pullback, potentially coming back within one of the seller's areas before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. So we wait to see whether or not we end up getting the price coming back either within this particular area, or price can come back all the way to the main red support and resistance area for us to look for those potential selling opportunities on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So we wait to see what ends up happening right now. No pullback just yet. So we'll need to be patient on these Canadian dollar pairs. So moving on to the next and last Canadian dollar pair we do have is the US dollar against Canadian dollar. Now on Friday, our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. I know the charts look quite small. It's just mainly because how big the gap was in terms of how price had gone. But you can clearly see these were the areas that we did have on Friday, looking for those potential buying opportunities. So during the London session, we did get a small push to the upside and the price managed to come back all the way to the main seller's area at the top. You can clearly see when the price came up, it never actually held above this area. You can see at 5:30, that's when we did end up getting the pullback. Price came back all the way to this main buyer's area. Got a very nice probe, the price holding above. You can clearly see after that, the price did manage to take off to the upside. You can clearly see within this situation right here, when these buyers attempted to go up, we never actually got the price holding above. So that was just a probe. But you can see the next time the buyers pushed to the upside. So apologies for that. Next time the buyers push to the upside, you can see evidence that the price is actually holding above within this area. And that could have given you a very nice buying opportunity there on the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So today, the buyers is still going to be looking for buying opportunities. And we have identified these 3 areas of interest. Right now, we've just even gotten a probe right here. So definitely a pullback is what we're expecting to come in. So wait to see whether or not it will react within this first problem area. If we don't see any reaction within this location, at least within this first area here, so let's say if we are hoping to see if we can end up getting aggressive buyers, but if not, when the price comes back down, it actually gives us a pullback and falls below, then chances are we could be coming back down all the way to this main buyer's area before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. So we wait to see what ends up happening, but definitely right now, pullback is what's coming in on the US dollar against Canadian dollar. So I hope that's clear on the Canadian dollar pairs. As you can see, we'll mix and match the Canadian dollar pairs with all the pairs on the buy side. So we're going to move on to the last currency pairs that we do have, which are the New Zealand dollar pairs. So these are brand new entrants on our watch list since we did not have them on Friday. So here, we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. You can clearly see the weakness that really did come in. So overall here, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. The good thing is now we are starting to get a pullback, which is definitely what we want to see. So the main objective for us right now is waiting to see how far this pullback is going to come in. We wait to see what reaction we get within this first area. If we do see some aggressive sellers here, then we definitely know the big boy sellers are here. But if we do not, then chances are we could still see price coming back all the way till the main red support and resistance area before we are able to see those aggressive sellers coming in. So wait to see what ends up happening, but definitely this is a pair of interest and you should keep your eye on it. So we'll move on to the next New Zealand dollar pair. Similar situation, a brand new entry on our watch list. And here we have the British pound against the New Zealand dollar. Bias here is going to be looking for buying opportunities. You can see aggressive buyers did end up coming in, which is what we want to see. But right now we are starting to get a pullback. If you realize the sellers are definitely the ones who are pushing the market down right now. Look at how aggressive the sellers came in. They could still continue pushing to the downside. So wait to see what ends up happening. Wait to see when the sellers will actually struggle to go lower or see signs that the big boy buyers are actually coming in for us to look for buying opportunities. So wait to see what kind of reaction you're getting within this location. But there's also a possibility price can still come all the way back down towards this main area before we're able to look for those buying opportunities. So wait to see what ends up happening. Right now, it's definitely a pair of interest. We know that buyers are clearly interested in the British pound as well as selling the New Zealand dollar. The only thing right now we need is a better price or at least a discount for us to look for another buying opportunity. So right here within this price, that's a good discount. And if we can end up getting a better discount, it's even better. So hope that is clear on the British pound against the New Zealand dollar. We move on to the next New Zealand dollar pair here, which is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. You can clearly see the real gaps that ended up coming in during the Asian session. So overall here, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities on the New Zealand dollar against the yen. You can clearly see the price has come down quite aggressive, but you realize we have not necessarily ended up getting a pullback this yet. We are starting to see some small signs that buyers are coming in. Sellers do look as if they're struggling a bit. So let's wait to see if we can end up getting this price either coming back within this support and resistance area for us to look for sell, or be aware the price can still pull back all the way till this main particular area for us to look for selling opportunities. One thing to note, I know there's a concept in trading where people call, or at least some sort of strategy, something about filling the gaps. So what you'll find sometimes, not necessarily all the time, but when there's usually a gap, similar situation like here till here, what you'll find is at some point in time during the day, the market will fill up this gap, meaning the price will end up coming back up towards where the starting price was before actually either attempting to go to the downside. So be careful about that. So even though we're looking for a fast selling opportunity here, just be aware the price can pull back to one of those areas. And that also applies to all the currency pairs that we've had a look at. So hope that is clear as we move on to the next and last currency pair we do have. Right here, we have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Similar correlation with the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. Bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. Sellers have really come down quite aggressive. And the main thing we want is a pullback. So right now, it does seem as that's what's actually happening, giving us higher highs and higher lows. So we want to see at what point in time will this market actually react, or when the big boy sellers will come in again, whether or not it will be this area, whether or not the price will end up actually coming to the upside, potentially trying to fill this gap, or we do end up finding the price going to the downside. But overall, we'll definitely be still looking for selling opportunities. We want to see what happens when the price approaches such areas. So I hope that's clear on all the currency pairs. As you can see, we'll mix and match all the pairs on the sell side with the pairs on the buy side. So right now, we're going to have a look at the indices before we do end up having a look at gold and silver. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. Now, it seems that the prices really did come down quite aggressive. Similar situation, seems like there was this huge gap, and definitely has something to do with Trump. But you can clearly see overall, the bias here was to look for buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas that John had pointed out, but the price kept on holding within this seller's area. Nothing really much happened at that point in time. At 5:30, we did get the price attempting to push to the upside, but I don't know necessarily what happened around 8:30. I don't necessarily know what Trump said. I know he's threatening a lot of countries with tariffs. So I know that's including Canada as well as Mexico, and I know they want to retaliate. So there's just a lot happening, and that Trump is definitely saying quite a lot, but can clearly see the price really did come down quite aggressive and really gapped during the Asian session. So that was unpredictable, but the fact that we reached that particular low overall today, our bias has switched, and we will be looking for selling opportunities based on these three areas. So as long as we're holding below this red support and resistance area right here, our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. But right now, since we're within this area where they're biased, let's wait to see if we can end up getting this pullback coming in, or we're able to look for selling opportunities there, or be aware, can end up attempting to fill up this gap. So you could easily find the price coming back all the way to this particular area. And then that's when you will end up seeing some sort of reaction. So we wait to see what ends up happening on this one, but definitely looking for selling opportunities. But be aware, since we're within the buyers area, there's a potential, or at least there's a possibility that the buyers might not necessarily show that interest. And if you see the price actually being able to break this area to the downside, to get the price pulling back and holding below, then at that point in time, we should be able to find a very nice selling opportunity to take the price down low. So let's wait to see what ends up happening, but I hope that game plan is clear on the NASDAQ. And it's a similar story on the Dow Jones. So on Friday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities. As you can see, it seems that the market was ranging between these levels. You know, John had pointed out there was an area to watch out for here because the price was within this particular area at that time. So we wanted to see whether or not we could get the price giving us a pullback, holding above for us to look for buying opportunities. But you can see when the price actually ended up coming down, it actually came below and showed us evidence of holding to the downside. So at that point in time, there was no buying opportunity just yet. In similar situation, around 8:30, the price really did come down quite aggressive. And again, during the Asian session, where it did end up gapping quite a bit. So overall today, we will be looking for selling opportunities on the Dow Jones. So we can clearly see right now, we are back within an area where there are buyers. So if we are looking for sales, that's definitely not the best place to look for your selling opportunities. Let's wait for one of two things since we're within an area where there are buyers. Either the buyers can give us a pullback within either this support and resistance area, or could end up attempting to come all the way to the top area right here before we're able to look for selling opportunities. But we could easily end up finding the price attempting to actually break this area to the downside. So if we see aggressive sellers coming in, the price actually shows us evidence it's holding below, then we should be able to continue looking for selling opportunities on the Dow Jones. But for now, since we're within our bias, let's wait to see either a breach the downside or a pullback coming in for us to actually do anything on this trade. So I hope that is clear on the Dow Jones as we move on to silver. So on silver, our bias was to look for buying opportunities. It is still today. We have adjusted the level slightly just based on how big of a push the market did end up pushing down, and we're back in an area where the bias. We do know these markets like to incite people to do one thing before doing something else. So you can see during the London session, we didn't end up attempting to turn to the upside, but the price was back in an area where there are sellers at 4 o'clock during the US session. So at either 4 o'clock or around 5:30, you can see the price did manage to continue coming down. We broke this level to the downside, showed us evidence it was actually holding below. This was during the Asian session. And you can see the price did manage to come down, but came back down towards the main buyer's area. So we have adjusted the level slightly, but overall, we will still be looking for buying opportunities as long as we're holding above this red support and resistance area. You can see the way the buyers are reacting. It is a good sign, but don't just start jumping in and buying opportunities just because you're seeing big green candles. Be aware of where you are. Remember, we are looking for buyers, but this is an area where there are sellers right here in front of you. So you don't want to end up getting into a car and fully pressing the accelerator when there's just a wall in front of you. Ideally, you need to go slowly, or maybe avoid that wall, or try and drive as far away from the wall as possible. So if this wall is right in front of you, you don't want to start jumping in and buying opportunities just yet, because you could easily find the sellers actually reacting. So in this situation, let's wait to see what ends up happening. Could end up finding the market coming back down before we end up seeing maybe the price coming back up. If we see the price holding above this area, then we should be able to continue looking for buying opportunities on silver. But remember, if the price breaks and holds below the red support resistance area, at that point in time, we will switch our bias and actually start looking for selling opportunities on silver. So I hope the game plan is clear. Still looking for buys on silver, and moving on to gold. So finally, fan favorite for most of you. So here on gold, our bias on Friday was to look for buying opportunities, and it is still the same situation today. You can see the price attempted to push to the upside during the London market open, sorry, the US market open. attempted to come up. Fortunately, the price ended up looking as if it was holding to the upside. Now, remember, we wanted to see if we could end up getting a pullback. Now, it does look as if here on the 15 minutes that the price did end up breaking that level. But especially when you end up going up to a higher time frame, let's say the 4-hour time frame, you can clearly see the highest point we have is within this particular area right here when the price came up. And after that, when the price came to the upside, it just came back down. This was just a probe, even though it's such a huge probe, but technically it was still a probe. And that's the reason why we will still be respecting the same areas that we did have, looking for buying opportunities. And you can see they are still being respected. So overall, as long as we're holding above this red support and resistance area, our bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities. Right now, we're within an area of interest. So let's wait to see what ends up happening. If the price ends up coming in and holding above this area, we could end up finding some potential buying opportunities. Do make sure to manage your trade within this particular problem area, because clearly it is definitely a very strong area that the buyers have attempted to break to the upside, and even with such strength, they were not able to actually take it up. But do watch out for that. And if we are able to get the price, remember, if we are able to actually get the price breaching and actually holding above, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities. But I think at that time, now that's when you'll be watching out for such an area, around within such an area right there at the top. So do watch out for that. But right now, let's wait to see what ends up happening. The price is actually going to hold above this area, or is this just a probe where you could find the price coming back down to the main buyer's area? So I hope that is clear in all the currency pairs, including gold and silver and the indices. So I guess that is it from me. In terms of fundamentals, remember I did point out we do have a bit of fundamentals coming out today during the London session. So we do end up expecting some volatility, especially after those gaps. You might end up finding some movements on the chart. So we have some Swiss franc fundamentals. Keep note of that. We have a lot of euro news as well as some British pound fundamentals. So do end up expecting the London session could be active today. So I guess that is it from me, from us. Not seeing any questions, which is okay. Remember, this is our watch list for now. And if you guys have any questions, queries, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are there in the video description. So once again, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Hope you guys have found value in this session. Remember, if you have any questions, queries, you want us to change something, you'd like some advice, we are a free resource here. You can be able to reach out to us. So once again, make sure you drop a like on this video. It really does help out the channel. Make sure if you've not subscribed, subscribe. If you do want to make sure not to miss any other session, or when we do end up going live, do make sure to press that bell notification where you're notified of any updates that we do have. Once again, thank you guys so much. Hope you have an amazing trading day. God bless. Happy trading, and bye for now. Cheers.